Namaskar, Namaste, welcome to Hillside and to our journey through the fascinating world of African diaspora genealogy and ancestry. My name is Bishop Jack Bomar and I serve as the presiding bishop here at Hillside. And I'm excited for you to join our members and founders of Good Genes Genealogy Services who will guide you through our amazing stories and discoveries from other Hillside members. You will also have a chance to learn more about how to trace your genealogy on an interactive technology platform also included in this video presentation. Before I conclude, I want to share with you my initial journey into my family's genealogy. A couple of years ago, I invited Dr. Ann Kimbrough to join me in tracing my ancestry and could only go as far back as my great-grandfather and great-grandmother at the time on my mother's side. And through her services and that of her assistant cousin Mark, I learned a lot about my family that I didn't know, and come to find out my great-grandfather was a lieutenant in the armed forces, the Army, and no one in my family knew that. And so what it has done is it's brought such enlightenment to the family and a sense of pride and joy and knowing who we are. And for many instances in our culture, we can only go back so far in our history. But their services and that of Dr. Ann and what they were able to share has been such a blessing to me and my family. So I want to encourage you to embark upon this journey. Get ready for an exciting time. Thank you so much for joining our community of legacy enthusiasts and story seekers. Let's begin.
I'm happy to welcome today Cheryl Sellers.
This is a very precious thing to me because this is my mother, Winona Elizabeth Stewart Sellers, my father, Harold Francis Sellers, and I just thought this was so perfect for what I'm doing. A village without generations of family is like a tree without roots.
And that's the box your mother made.
Absolutely. And I just put this together when, I was cleaning up all that she left behind. And she left behind a lot. My mother threw out nothing. So I use this for anything that I gather, paper-wise and stuff.
And that is special.
Very
that is
special.
so special, and thank you for sharing.
From the time I was a child was that I realized I never met any of my grandparents, and I knew only my father because my mother was an only child. He had 3 other brothers. Those were the only relatives I knew. And I just thought, wow, I know there are other ancestors, and I never really knew who they were. They didn't talk about them, even though we had family gatherings. Nothing was ever said about those that weren't there. And we didn't have large family. Everybody had 1 or 2 children. So there weren't 13 in one and 14 in another. I was very, very curious.
So you had that burning inside feeling that you needed to know more about your family.
Absolutely. I couldn't wait to go to school somewhere where it could be warm. And in our little church, and there was only one little colored church where I lived, and we were members of, for some reason when I was 12, a wonderful group called the Morehouse Glee Club came. And I had never seen that many gorgeous black men in my life. And I said to them afterwards, I'm coming to your school. And they said, oh, my darling, you can't come to Morehouse, but our sister school is Spelman. And from that point on, that was my goal. My father wanted me to go to Ohio State. I was accepted, of course, at Cornell, and I wasn't staying in the cold weather anymore. And that's how I came to Spelman. But it wasn't for ancestry.
No, it wasn't for ancestry.
It was to be about being with all of us. All of us together. That's what I wanted. And people of color, because I hadn't been raised that way. Talking with the members that were still there. We had so few because it was a small family. Mom was an only child. Her father, of course, lived with us. I was curious about Dad's side because only thing I knew was that his father, he came from Culpeper, Virginia. And why they settled in a little one-horse town called Leroy, New York, I'll never know. And I always fought him because he had 4 girls that, at least this one, thought they should be in Hollywood. So he had to live with that nonsense.
Were you among those 4 girls?
I was one of his 4
and
girls.
who was that one to be in Hollywood, for the record?
Well, this little one-horse farm he had us on, I was not happy with. And the thing of it is, and I wouldn't trade it for all the world now, losing Dad at 17, because that's how old I was when he passed. I was so disappointed because there have been years afterwards, just millions of questions that I wish I had asked him, that I didn't. But I had my mom till 88, and every year that I'd visit her, it was about take the recorder and listen to your mother, because Mom didn't talk. She was a very quiet Indian, and so it was very hard for her. She never said anything about how she grew up. She never once mentioned what it was like in her day. She just never talked about that. So she really actually went to her grave with all of those secrets. So I wanted to find out more about who and what I am.
And speaking of your mother transitioning, did she leave behind anything for you to find out more about her?
Not at all. Nothing. And that's why I said I'm going to have to do my own investigation. She had no cousins. I mean, we have cousins. I found them through talking to others and finding out where some of my family members were. Mm-hmm. And that's how I really started in talking with them and trying to get an idea of what the family tree looked like on Mom and Dad's side. I did not realize, I knew Dad's fathers came from Culpeper, Virginia. I didn't know that my father graduated from Leroy High School. And when you brought me that picture to see Dad again was one of the most wonderful moments, just to see his name and to see that face, because it's been so many years.
And his accomplishments.
And everything that he had done. But he was a man ahead of his time anyway. I knew that. But it was just that I knew Dad for such a short length of time, and I was just 17 when it all ended. So it was wonderful to have that moment of seeing Dad again.
I'll tell you that one of my favorite times finding your father, as based on the information you gave me, but the wedding.
That was Mom.
So
yes.
Describe that for all of us.
That was the other thing I was going to mention to you. When you gave me the newspaper article, my mom.
And what year was that? Do you recall?
1940. Yes, 1940. My mom was raised in Angelica, New York. Angelica, New York is another one of those little bedroom communities near Watkins Glen, New York, which no one has ever heard of, including myself. But to see in their newspaper in 1940 my mother's wedding, getting that kind of acclaim, what she wore, what the flowers were, that was just fantastic, and I was so excited when I got that.
So
I got blessed with a gift, and 23andMe, and I received that. And that was an eye-opener, because the most that I knew of my background was Caribbean, where my mom, my grandfather, her father is from Jamaica, Kingston, but my father, the only thing I knew of his background was Culpeper, Virginia to Leroy. I was told I had so much of a Narragansett Indian because my mother is Native American, but that is a Rhode Island group. Nobody's ever really heard of them. They were one of these that weren't fighters, and so you don't read about them in anything about indigenous people, but they're out of Rhode Island. They do have a little museum there. I took my mother. She was not impressed. It wasn't very big. But that's how much I knew about myself. But when I got 23andMe, I found out that I not only have relatives, or I come from not just the Caribbean, but also Africa also. So I was excited about that. And that's where I have been interested in finding more about that. And then you, of course, had told me Ancestry.com. by wanting more. And I can only say I'm my own procrastinator, and that was my number one wish and letter to myself and everything for this year is not putting it off any longer. I'm turning a new decade. It's time to answer some of the questions I've always had. And it just means that, taking the time to do it. And investigating and in knowing you, because you're walking information, and I just love it because you share and let us know, go to this site, go to that, and do these things. You just have to actually follow through. To me, the meditation, just learning to embrace who I am internally brings out all of that and wants it to come out because that's who I am. So that energy is constantly whirling, and I want to get it to the highest vibration.
Excellent.
Because all of us are standing on, to me, the shoulders of giants, and those giants are those people that have come before, that are no longer with us, that we are a part of. And I can feel them. I can feel they're encouraging me to find out about them. One thing I'm very curious about, my father, the only ones I knew were his brothers. He did have a sister. I'd heard her name. I knew I had an Aunt Miriam, but no one talked about her much because she died at a very young age. But she was a teacher. And I've spent my career teaching. So I wanted to know more about her and what happened with her and what she died of. And, no one talked about anything. So these are the kinds of things that I just know I only stand in my own way by saying I don't have time. I do have time, and I want to make that time for those things that are important, because we need to know where we came from and whose we are. I have 2 remaining sisters. I lost one sibling. There were 4 of us. There are now 3. They have no interest at all in pursuing where they came from. So that is, it's amazing to me
say that
nobody's.
now, but when you find out.
Oh yeah, they need little pieces they find interesting, but they wouldn't spend their time researching. I know that it's a benefit to all of us, and to, I think, anybody that I come in contact with, even in my teaching ability, because I want the children that I teach to respect and admire the ancestors that they're blessed to have with them right now. I have children, I'm contacted by their great-grandparents because they're concerned about the education they're getting. I love this, and I say to them, you don't know how blessed you are to have such a wonderful network that you already have. I didn't have that, and I would just like to know about them and know what their lives were like, where they ended up, what they did, because I know I'm carrying the residue, which is DNA, of all of this.
You are.
So I really am excited about it.